Today we're going to dive a fascinating and honestly kind of mind-bending paper by S.C. Sayles called The Unlie Toward a New Moralonomy of Human Speech. And wow, this is a one. The driving question in Sayles' paper is, okay, what if our classic way of evaluating speech, like is it true or false, or is it sincere or deceptive, what if that whole binary is missing something really big? Like, is there a type of speech that sneaks through the cracks? Turns out, the paper argues, yes. The paper introduces this new moral category called the unlie, a true statement told with the intent to deceive. Wait, what? A true statement intentionally told to make someone believe something false? Whoa, why is this important? Well, think about all the times out in the wild world, politics, corporate PR, law, even AI systems, where people or machines say things that are strictly true, but leave you with the totally wrong impression. The problem is, our usual way of thinking, truth versus lie, just doesn't catch this special kind of trickery. And according to Sayles, recognizing the unlie is vital if we care about things like trust, autonomy, and taking responsibility for our words. At the core, here's the big move Sayles makes. The author argues that truth, untruth, lie, and unlie are all separate types of speech act, each with its own structure and moral flavor. Here's how it works. First, you have truth. True statement, sincere intention. Then, untruth, false statement, but still sincere, like an honest mistake. Lie, false statement, and the speaker wants to deceive, but then, the head-turner. Unlie. True statement told to deceive, and that's the category that's been invisible until now, according to Sayles. A big part of the paper is about the moral square of opposition, which, if you're into Aristotle, you might recognize as inspired by his logical square. In the moral square, you've got one axis for truth versus falsity, and another for whether the intention is honest or deceptive. When you cross these, you get the four speech types I just listed. So, every kind of speech lives in its own corner of the square. Let's lay it out in practical terms. Have you ever heard a politician say, unemployment is down this year? And, yeah, that's objectively true, but conveniently omitting something like, there's been a massive drop in workforce participation, so the story is way more complicated. That, Sayles argues, is the unlie in action. They're saying something correct, and yet hoping you walk away, believing something that just isn't so. Or maybe a company says, we meet all safety standards, which is true, but they know those standards are laughably low. You get the idea. What really matters here for you, for me, for all of us, is that Sayles thinks seeing this distinction can help us be smarter listeners and, honestly, more responsible speakers. According to Sayles, we too often let people off the hook for manipulative truth-telling because, technically, they didn't lie. But the harm can be just as real. If we don't have a word for this, we can't call it out when public trust or relationships get eroded by selective or strategic honesty. And, here's a twist. Sayles also explores what happens when AI systems start doing this. Because, gosh, machines don't have intentions the way humans do, right? But if they're programmed to spit out technically true statements while nudging us toward patently wrong beliefs, is that an unlie too? The author says, well, yes, in a functional way, which, yikes, opens a whole can of worms about trust in the digital age. So what are the big takeaways for listeners? First, it's eye-opening to realize honesty is more than just stating facts. It's also about why you're stating them. Second, we probably need to be a little more skeptical, without falling into cynicism, when someone's truth-telling leads people to a totally off-base conclusion. Last, if we can think with this framework ourselves, we might build stronger, more genuine trust with those around us, even when things get complicated.